Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. It has been a while since I have done a collaboration video. I definitely missed them, so I am excited to be bringing you another one today on the channel with one of my dear friends and artist colleagues here on YouTube, Jennifer Charlee. I know that many of you have heard me mention Jennifer's channel before. Many of you might even be subscribed to her. Jennifer and I met about a year ago at Silicon Valley Comic Con last year when she came up to my table and introduced herself as another artist who was vending there in Artist Alley. And since then, you guys know that we have been fast friends. We founded the Animal Artist Collective together, and we've gotten to do a lot of shows and really fun projects together. Today, we wanted to do a proper collaboration since we haven't been able to do one of those yet, and we decided to swap art styles. So I was really excited to work on this with her. Jennifer and I both like our collaborations to be really unique and very specific to the artist that we are working with. So what we did is we swapped a color of paint with each other, and in my case, Jennifer gave me a couple extra goodies to play with. She gave me 3 different samples here in this mystery bag, and the one that she specified that she wanted me to try and use in the challenge was the quinacridone magenta from Da Vinci, but I also ended up using the yellow as well, which is a Dr. P.H. Martin Hydrus color, which I hadn't been able to play with before. It was a lot of fun. So those 2 colors you're going to see in this painting, along with, I was mostly going to be using anthraquinone blue, but it had a weird interaction with the Hydrus watercolor, so I eventually switched over to phthalo blue. I'm only going to be using those 3 colors for our challenge, but the more interesting challenge here at hand was taking on another artist's art style. So as I mentioned before, Jennifer also paints animals, but hers are in a more illustrative style. She uses a lot of those cool color palettes, and she almost always includes plants and or succulents. She loves plants, and if you follow her either here on YouTube or on Instagram, that will be of no surprise to you, but it was very challenging for me to work in these elements into my pieces. I love focusing on animal portraits, and I really couldn't care about anything else that's going on in the background in terms of when I'm creating art. I love looking at other people's really comprehensive paintings with these amazing backgrounds and attention to detail, but that's just never been something that I've worked into my style. So in order to be able to familiarize myself more with Jennifer's style, I did a lot of research by looking on her Instagram page and also watching a lot of her videos, including a recent video that she came out with on how to fill a sketchbook with plants, which was actually perfect for me. I don't think she planned it this way intentionally, but I was able to watch this little plant sketching session that she did, and that gave me a lot of ideas for how I wanted to incorporate plants into this piece that I did. I spent a good amount of time in my own sketchbook trying to kind of figure out the flow and the shapes of the plants that I would be incorporating into this painting to represent Jennifer's art style, and it wasn't until I had a full composition in mind that I switched over to my watercolor paper. When it came to choosing what animal I wanted to do for this challenge, I considered a lot of different things, and I didn't want to do something too on the nose with things that Jennifer has already done, but I did think it would be really fun to take my logo, which is a red panda face surrounded by all these splash colors, and do the red panda face with the plants coming out from behind it. So that is what I decided on. So I actually want to take a couple minutes to talk about the fact that I chose to do a piece that is so special to me in another person's art style, because even though I used my own painting as the reference for this face, it turned out a lot differently because of some things that I was keeping in mind while I was working on it. Jennifer's more illustrative style implements a lot of kind of closed lines, I guess is how I would put it, and you'll see later in this video she also finishes a lot of her work with colored pencil, which you might have seen me do when I was working on the Harry Potter series. I really enjoyed trying out this more illustrative style, but it also let me kind of introspectively think about why I do certain things the way that I do, and why my work all kind of tends to look the same style, even though they may be of different subjects. One of the things that I was drawn to about watercolor is that you have these beautiful loose washes, and the color can do unexpected things, and that you can kind of fade it off. You guys know I use that technique a lot to kind of fade off or soften my edges to the white of the paper, so not being able I don't know if you guys can hear that, but there are two red-shouldered hawks outside my window mating right now. They're squawking a lot. I know that's a weird circumstance to have during a YouTube recording, but I apologize if you could hear them. I'm going to try and keep talking and not worry about that so much. So I definitely lost my train of thought, and I'm not quite sure where I was going with that, but basically what I wanted to say is that doing this more illustrative style kind of takes me out of what originally drew me to watercolors, and that is that loose fluidity that can just kind of float off the page and have this really ephemeral quality to it. I wasn't able to rely on that technique that I use so often for this piece, and so I definitely found like there were challenges in terms of shading and creating depth, and I definitely admire those artists who use this more illustrative style, since it was so hard for me to kind of step out of my own box to kind of work with it. When I started to move on to the foliage in the back, it really felt like a coloring book, and that is that I had already drawn in all of these leaves, and I was basically just trying to go around and color them and shade them so that they looked like they fit in with the rest of the piece. And part of me really loves that coloring book style. When I was watching Jennifer's Inktober videos, I just kept thinking, oh my gosh, these would be so fun to paint. She did all the line art for Inktober, but hadn't gotten around to painting all of them yet. And I was just thinking of how fun it would be for me to like fill everything in and just put those colors down, because that's the part of the art that I like so much. But admittedly, line art is not my strong suit, and drawing really strong lines and strong details are something I have always admired in other artists, but they're not a skill that I hone on my own. I rely on my watercolor skills to create paintings rather than my drawing skills, and people have different opinions on that. I do believe that in order to be a successful watercolor artist, you do have to have foundational drawing skills so that you can really create these pieces that come off of your line art. But for me, you can't see any of my line art when I am done with the piece, versus that's the exact opposite of what is happening here, where that line art is still going to be very much in the forefront of the painting. So I had to kind of take that insecurity about myself and my lack of confidence in my line art and try and make that work for this piece. And that kind of brings us around to, I'm not going to go too much in depth about it here. I'm sure Jennifer's going to mention it in her video, and there's tons of other videos on YouTube kind of explaining exploring your own art style. This is a question I get asked a lot by a lot of younger viewers or people who are just starting off with artwork about how it is that you can find your art style. And I think there are people who are better suited to talk about this than I am, but just because I am asked about it often, I'll go ahead and put in a little bit of a blurb here. And that is that I have tried a lot of different art styles. There are so many artists that I admire on Instagram and on YouTube. I, of course, love Jennifer's art style. I love Anita's art style. I love Danica Sills and Jacqueline De Leon, who paint completely different things than I paint. I admire all of their artwork, but when I try and emulate that artwork, it doesn't feel like it's mine. It feels like it's theirs. And I keep coming back, not consciously, but like I always keep coming back to the thing that brought me to watercolor. As I mentioned, those loose, flowy lines, softening off to the paper. Of course, for me, portraits are such a huge part of what I do, and that connection through the eyes is what I tend to focus on in most of my paintings. By coming back around and looping back around to those same elements that keep ending up in my paintings over and over and over again, because that is me shining through on the paper, that is how I found my art style. I didn't really go searching for it. I kind of let my medium, which is watercolor, speak to me, and ended up there. And I have definitely dabbled in other people's art styles since then, and kind of, seeing if I could get away with working in other styles, and it just didn't feel like it was me. So I know that that is not a really helpful answer for those of you who want a short and quick answer to how do you find your art style, but what I would say is just keep practicing over and over, and I would recommend for myself and for others who are like me to practice specifically in the medium that calls most to you and really find your art style in that medium before you try and extrapolate to doing them in a lot of different styles. I've been trying to play with gouache, and I tried to add colored pencil into this one, but those aren't mediums that I'm super familiar with. So if you're looking specifically for your art style, I would say take out as many other factors as possible and get down to what you are comfortable with. So I think that was pretty rambly. I might have a heck of a time trying to edit that to make it seem coherent and flow, but I hope that it helped somewhat. Back to the painting here, you can see that I have been coloring in all of these different succulent and fern leaves with different shades of green. As I mentioned at the start of the video, I was originally going to use PB60 and the Hansa Yellow Light from Dr. P.H. Martin's, and the textural qualities of that weren't what I wanted, and you can definitely see that in a couple areas on this painting that they weren't very smooth, and definitely not the really translucent nature of Jennifer's work. So I eventually switched over to Phthalo Blue, which worked so much better, and I was able to get a really large range of colors, going all the way from a yellow green to a really, really soft, like a succulent minty green type of color. And I really, really just enjoyed kind of finding all those different shades within those two colors. I went back, added details and shading over a lot of the leaves to make them more three-dimensional, and finally I finished off the piece using colored pencil by outlining the succulents in green and the red panda in kind of a fuchsia-y, pinky magenta color. So in kind of a conclusion to wrap up this video, I had so much fun working with Jennifer and working in her art style to kind of see what I was capable of in other mediums, but also being really grateful for having found my own art style, and really, really excited to go back to that fluidity as well, while at the same time having so much appreciation for what Jennifer does. If you are not already subscribed to Jennifer's channel, make sure you go ahead and click that iCard in the link above or in the description below this video so that you can go ahead and find her beautiful artwork. She also has a video up where she is trying to work with my art style and the color that I picked out for her that definitely did not fall in her cool blues, greens, and purple range, and I think you'll have a lot of fun watching that video too. So thank you guys so much for watching the video today, and a special shout out to anyone who has come over here from Jennifer's channel. Welcome, and if you enjoyed watching this video, make sure you go ahead and hit that subscribe button and the little bell so you can get notified when new videos come out. And be sure to go ahead and give this video a like if you enjoyed this collaboration. It really helps out the channel, and definitely keep the discussion going in the comments below. Let me know how you liked this piece, if you are a viewer of Jennifer's, and how you enjoyed this effort of collaboration between the two of our channels. And I also want to know more about your art style, or if you have any tips for others trying to find theirs. As always, thank you so much to my patrons for helping support this channel, and especially to my producers, who I have new ones this month. I am so excited to have so much of your support over on Patreon, and if you'd like to support the content on this channel, you can do that as well by following the iCard above or the links in the description below. Thank you guys so much for watching. There will be a color spotlight video this Friday, I promise. I'm sorry I didn't have one last week. It's been really, really rough, and I know a lot of you guys have already send me well wishes, so I appreciate the support. But in short, I will see you in the next video. Thanks so much, and have a wonderful day.